Linwood Hood, CETA Chaplain and President of Omega Supply Services. Mr. Hood.
Good morning again, everyone.
Good morning.
Now let us go before the Lord to give him honor, to acknowledge him, and then petition him. Father God Almighty, we come before you in the name of Jesus Christ. We come acknowledging you as our source. And then we come with thanksgiving, thanking you for this time that we are able to assemble together. And as we assemble, we focus on the time that we have, according to the United States government, Congress, we have set aside the fourth Thursday of November to thank you and for a time of Thanksgiving. So we thank you this morning for all the things that you've done in and through us. And you've told us by your word to be thankful in all things, for this is your will in Christ Jesus. So we are mindful to be thankful to you in the midst of all things, but not for all things. So in the midst of this pandemic, we are thankful that we have hope. We have the power of unity, and we have the ability to overcome. So we thank you, Father. We thank you knowing that but for your grace, the condition that we're confronted with could have been worse. So now, Father, we shall go about the activities of this meeting as planned. We thank you, Father, for those who have volunteered and who've answered the call, the invitation to join us this morning, for the fact that they put aside other things they could have been doing in favor of being with us, so that we can, from a position of unity, come up with ways to impact our children and teach them the way that they should be taught, making the adjustments that we're confronted with that are brought about by the pandemic. Now, Father, we give you praise and we give you honor. I pray that the things that we say and do this day will have a far-reaching effect on the activities that lay ahead. We are going on now with hope, the expectation of overcoming the problem that we could face in the economic order, the change in the social and psychological order, that we will be able to adapt and then make changes so that your will is being done and we will walk in victory as we overcome. In the name of Jesus Christ, I pray and do give thanks. Amen.
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 Amen. Thank you, Mr. Hood. We are extremely pleased that you all have taken time out of your busy mornings to join us. CETA's mission is to keep our members and residents informed and involved in economic development issues that impact the quality of life for you and your families. So we are proud to work on your behalf to foster economic development in our communities. Our general meetings cover a broad spectrum of issues and topics such as business, education, health, legislation, and transportation. We invite you to continue to be a part of these sessions. I'd like to thank Mr. Kenneth Ford this morning, CETA Contract Administrator and Website Chairperson, for providing technical and AV support for the meeting today. We ask that you would make sure that your computers and devices are muted. If you have questions during the presentations, please use the group chat at the bottom of your screen to type your questions, and we will make sure that all questions are read during the question and answer section of the agenda, and we'll also open the floor for verbal questions. So thank you again for being here. Now we will have special greetings from Ms. Jane Taylor Thomas, CETA President and President of the PG Chapter of the Afro-American Historical and Genealogical Society. President Thomas.
Thank you, Wenda. Good morning. Welcome to the South County Economic Development Association's second virtual health meeting titled "The Effects of the Pandemic, Preparing to Re-Enter the Classrooms." As you know, this COVID-19 pandemic has affected educational systems worldwide, leading to the near total closure of schools, universities, and colleges. Most governments around the world decided to have temporarily closed educational institutions in an attempt to reduce the spread of COVID-19. Before I go any further, I'd like to thank our guest speakers for taking time out of their busy schedules to provide us with a wealth of information. In addition, I wish to thank CEDA's Vice President, Tanya Sweat, our Program Chair, Wenda Tucker, our Legislative Affairs Chair, Linda Thomas, and our technical support staff led by Ken Ford for carrying on meetings while I was attending Family Affairs and the National Genealogy Conference last month. For individuals who are not familiar with CEDA, I'd like to take a few minutes to acquaint you with our organizations. As a nonprofit membership organization, CEDA provides community-based leadership and planning for economic growth and development in Prince George's and Charles counties. CEDA is a major stakeholder and an organizational record on issues having an economic impact on the quality of life that is experienced by citizens in the community. Now, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Dr. Wilhelmina Taylor. Dr. Taylor is the chair of CEDA's Health Action Committee and a pharmacy manager at Giant Food. Dr. Taylor.
Thanks, President Jane. First of all, I want to thank each and every one of you all for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us this Saturday morning. You are all in for a treat. We will be discussing today the effects of the pandemic and preparing to re-enter the classrooms. We have an excellent panel of guest speakers. Dr. Bruce McClure, who is our minister and also a professional counselor at the Prince George's Church of Christ in Landover, Maryland. We also have Latina Wilson. She's the vice chairman of the Charles County Board of Education. We have Dr. Frederick J. Porter, pediatrician of Porter Pediatrics. And we also have Sonia Williams, District 9 board member of the Prince George's County Board of Education. And like Wenda said earlier, Sonia Williams will be joining us shortly. Our panelists will discuss mental, physical, emotional, and social effects that the pandemic has had on our children. And our panelists will address ways in which we can help to give some type of normalcy to our children as we continue to navigate through this pandemic. The panelists will also give us safe and best practices as many of our children prepare to re-enter into the classroom. Our first speaker on the agenda is Dr. Bruce McClure. As I said, he's the minister and clinical professional professional counselor at Prince George's Church of Christ in Landover, Maryland. Dr. Bruce McClure was born in West Memphis, Arkansas, and he graduated from West Memphis High School in 1972. He received his bachelor's degree in 1980 from Oklahoma Christian University and his master's degree in 1989 from Troy State University. He has been in the ministry since 1978, and currently he serves as the minister and professional counselor, as I said earlier, at the Prince George's Church of Christ in Landover, Maryland. He received his PhD in 1999 from the American Bible College. Brother McClure is a national board certified clinical counselor. He is a licensed clinical professional counselor in the state of Maryland. He is a certified rational sexual counselor, a certified rational marriage and family counselor, and also a certified clinical trauma specialist. Dr. McClure has a number of associations that he's a member of. He's a member of American Association Marriage Family Therapists, American Counseling Association, Maryland Licensed Counselors Association, Maryland Mental Hygiene Association, and American Psychological Association. Dr. McClure was a family worker specialist from the years of 2000 to 2013 at Concern Professional Services for Children. This is a multi-service private nonprofit 501c III human service organization, which was dedicated to providing child welfare, juvenile justice, and behavioral health services to children and their families. Dr. Bruce McClure is married to Sister Bernice McClure for over 38 years now, and they have 4 sons, Marcus, Edwin, Brian, and Byron, along with their growing family, and they reside in Fort Washington, Maryland. Allow me to introduce Dr. Bruce McClure.
Good morning, President Taylor, Dr. Taylor. Thank you so much for inviting me to be a participant on the panel today. My apologies for not being able to share the slide presentation with you. As things go, my computer crashed last night. Following this presentation, at 11:30, I've got to sign on to another national presentation that's being sponsored by a minister association.
Okay.
So please accept my apology in advance for having to leave you sooner than your dismissal time. I am connected to Prince George's County, to the state of Maryland. In the bio that was read, my children, all 4 of them, are graduates of the Prince George's County public school system. My wife is a special ed nurse at Surratt's High School. One of my sons is actually a school psychologist in Charles County. In DC, I'm sorry. His wife is an assistant principal in Charles County. And I share that with you so that you will know that I'm not just speaking as just an invited guest. I am invested in the public education system here in the DC metro area. The pandemic has changed lives, I think, forever, because once a pandemic hits and once children especially are traumatized by that pandemic, life will never be the same. In a May 28th, 2020 publication in Forbes magazine, they made, I think, a profound observation. Before COVID, problems with work, social, family burnout, stress, and even anxiety were already in existence, manageable, but in existence. What the pandemic has done is accelerated what was manageable. We were already dealing with those events before March of 2020. In that same publication of Forbes from May of 2020, according to George Everly, who is a professor of disaster impact and how it impacts the mental health of children, Everly is at Johns Hopkins. And what Everly observed is that this pandemic is packed with psychological unknowns and for sure, many disasters to come. We really do not know what to expect moving forward because we've never been in this environment before. And I think in terms of preparing for the children to return to school, to return to social life, that all of the professionals, all of the healthcare professionals, the social service professionals, the academic professionals must be aware that we are venturing into territory that has never been explored in this generation. In fact, in the past 100 years. The National Institute of Health has a division called the National Center for Biotechnology. And in February of 2013, they conducted a study to investigate the psychosocial responses of children and their parents to pandemic disasters. They focused on children and parents where both a disease and the containment were experienced. And they found that disease containment in an environment involving quarantine and isolation may be traumatizing to a significant portion of both adults and children. Well, what does that have to do with anything? We are in the midst right now of isolation, quarantine. We're coming into Thanksgiving, and the prayer that was offered up, I think, spoke directly to this is the first time in our lifetime that restrictions are being recommended by the CDC, that no travel takes place outside of a person's own personal household. Now, with that, the NIH also found that PTSD criteria was met in 30% of those that were isolated and quarantined in the child population. And this was reported by the adults, the parents. The children, according to the parents, were suffering post-traumatic stress syndrome. And can you imagine, although we're not articulating it as such, but our children are still in this pandemic because of the isolation and the quarantine. They are also experiencing PTSD. Now, the PTSD criteria was also met in 25% of the isolated and quarantined parents. So the parents are suffering from PTSD. The children are suffering from PTSD. It's not unusual for the rate to be higher in the child than it is the parent. What triggers the PTSD? For almost 9 months, we have had a repetitive news cycle of death, of sickness, of death, of sickness, of death, of sickness. And that's basically what creates post-traumatic stress. So we're calling it the pandemic of COVID-19, but the underlying condition is also creating PTSD in both children and adults. When we check our phones, a phone call comes in from out of state, a phone call comes in from a friend, a relative. One of the first things we want to find out is everybody okay? Because with the death rate being around 1,500 to 2,000 people per day, the likelihood that someone contracting the virus or the likelihood of someone dying that we know or that our children know is plausible. This week, CNN, you know how they do the little observation about people who have died because of COVID-19? I was doing the Wednesday night broadcast for our Bible class, and when I signed off, Wolf Blitzer had done an observation of a young man in Proctor, Arkansas, a town that's probably not even on the map where I grew up, where Michael Lewis had died of COVID-19. I grew up with him, knew him personally, but he contracted the virus. One of my brother-in-laws, my wife's brother, had the virus. And I'm sure that you know, each panelist know, someone who has contracted COVID-19 or someone who has succumbed to it. The conclusion, according to NIH's study in February of 2013, was that pandemic-related quarantine and isolation may create, and it does, the PTSD response in the entire family system. So when PTSD happens, you have the identified person, the child, let's say, but it impacts the entire family. That's what the conclusion is showing. So what impacts one within the family system impacts everyone in the family system. Well, returning to school, what impacts one student is going to impact the entire classroom. What impacts one classroom is going to have an overflow effect on the entire school. That's really the bigger picture. It's going to snowball, and the public school system, as well as the family systems, should be aware of that. Now, in most school systems, the school psychologists are aware of a measurement instrument called the ACE, the Adverse Childhood Experience Indicators. And typically with that instrument, we look at adverse childhood experiences experienced by people before the age of 18. And if they have more than 3, then it raises the potential for alarm that the child was traumatized. Well, think through this as I run through the list. No prom, no graduation, no spring break, no basketball season, no football season, no class trips, no skip day, no lunchroom chats, children who ride the big cheese, no bus rides, no dates. Can you imagine at the level of a student how traumatizing that is? And they've experienced that for 9 months. The ACE has 10 inventory items. And we look back over 18 years, the first 18 years of development. But look at what our children are experiencing in a short time window of just 9 months. The ACE says, have you experienced 2 or 3? If I was to ask the panelists, how many of those that I listed, and I listed 10, how many of those do you think the average child has experienced at the high school level, at the junior high level, at the elementary school level? They are being traumatized. And many times as adults, we do not recognize the trauma and the adverse experiences that the children are really facing day by day. Well, I'm not just a person who gives out statistical information. One of the things Dr. Wilhelmina wanted to address in this forum also is, so what can we do? How can we help? Well, number one, pay attention to self as the adult care provider, as the classroom teacher, the social worker, even the pediatricians, and I'm just so glad that you have one as a panelist today. But the adult care providers, at whatever the level, should pay attention to the adversities that are going on within the child, and also pay attention to what's happening to the adult. Secondly, as much as possible, make and try to keep a routine. And we should teach that to our parents and also to the providers. Thirdly, ask the child about their feelings, their fears about this pandemic. It's almost like what I teach about suicide. We do risk assessments. One of the things that I encourage is just ask the question, are you planning to harm yourself? Well, what do you mean by harm? Are you planning to kill yourself? Well, but if we introduce it, it may trigger the thought. No, the thought is either going to be there or it's not. So with this pandemic and the traumatization that the children are under, ask them about their feelings. Ask them, so what scares you about this? Next, express your own personal concerns. Sometimes children follow the lead. So if children never see us talk about it, be concerned about it, they may have feelings about it, but our non-verbalization is a message to them that it is not okay to express what they may be feeling. Seek outside counsel. It's okay as the parent, as the teacher, as the social worker, to seek help from, look, we've not experienced this before. So we may have to ask somebody, so how should I talk to my child about this? How should I talk to my students about this? How should I feel about this? And then don't forget the family prayer. This is something that in God's time, God is going to open doors. Historically, that's true. I teach this ministerially. If you start the study in the book of Genesis, there will never be a time period when there wasn't a crisis. By the time you get to Genesis 3, there's a major crisis. But it passes. By the time you get to Genesis 8, there's another major crisis. It's called the flood. It's universal, but it passes. By the time you get to the book of Exodus, there's another crisis. The children of Israel are in Egyptian bondage. Lasts a long time, but it still passed. And I think you get the point. Don't forget God in this thing. And then have a wish list of plans post the pandemic. Pull the children into that in the class. When this is over, what would you immediately like for us to do that you've missed? Well, the first thing I want to do is go back to the movie theater. Well, let's put that on our short term. That's a doable list. The kid may say, well, the first thing I want to do is go to Disney World. No, we've got to put that on the long-term list because I'm not comfortable with traveling yet. Well, the first thing I want to do is to go to a restaurant and sit down without a mask on. Okay, that's doable. That's short term. The first thing I want to do is go to a wrestling tournament or to a football game. Okay, let's put that on the short term list. And I think with those type simple but doable items, we're able to navigate this pandemic. My approach to ministry, as well as my approach to clinical matters, I've taken a very simplistic approach. I use complicated techniques with it. And I hope today in this brief summary that I've been helpful to each of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. McClure, for that excellent presentation. The second speaker will be Ms. Latina Wilson. She's the Vice Chairman of the Charles County Board of Elections. She's also a native of Charles County. Tina grew up on a small farm in the community of Issue, Maryland. She graduated from Charles County Public Schools and received her BS degree in Business Administration from the University of Maryland, Eastern Shore. While enrolled at UMES, she participated in the ROTC program at Salisbury University. Upon graduation, she was commissioned as second lieutenant and pursued a career in the Army, and she retired in the year 2005. She serves as a logistics officer on a variety of assignments around the world, and she is a veteran of Desert Shield and Desert Storm. Tina is heavily engaged in a variety of volunteer activities in the community, including vice chair, Charles County School Board. She's a member of the Board of Visitors at the University of Maryland, Eastern Shore, president of Port Tobacco River Conservancy, vice president at Southern Maryland Alumni Chapter of the University of Maryland, Eastern Shore, former chair, Education Committee and treasurer at Charles County branch of the NAACP, McConchy One Room Schoolhouse Committee, Charles County Fair Board, and she's also a member of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, just to name a few. Tina enjoys free time with her family on the water, and she also loves history and being outdoors. So now I introduce Ms. Tina Wilson.
Well, thank you, everyone. That was very, very kind of you to share that resume of mine. I will tell you, I'm blessed and I'm honored to represent Charles County Public Schools today to talk to you about a number of things under COVID conditions. On behalf of Chairman Virginia McGraw, who could not make it today because of medical reasons, and Superintendent Dr. Kimberly Ann Hill, I was chosen to present to you today. I hope all of you today, and as well as your loved ones, are in a good mind, good spirits, and are healthy. And so, as you can imagine, March 13th changed the trajectory in which we live our lives. And we had to make some modifications. In terms of the public education system, we quickly realized that we needed to put together a plan. And I want to briefly share with you our approach to, let's see if I can get it up real quick, of what we are doing, and let's see. Can you see my slide? Can you guys see my slide or no?
No, not yet.
Okay. Not yet? Oh,
No.
you know why? It's simple. You hit the share button. Okay. So let's and I want to just kind of reiterate what Dr. McClure said about how our children, echo or model our parents' behavior or guardians' behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that I wanted to reassure all of you, that Charles County Public Schools, as well as many other school systems, has developed a plan to outline how we intend to pursue instructional activities. Our plan is basically a 5-phase plan, and we are currently in phase 1. And just so that you understand what the definition of phase 1 is in Charles County, that includes all students will participate in virtual instructions for 4 days a week. Each level will have a schedule. Lessons will be live, and traditional grading and attendance practices would be in place. And our teachers will provide a pre-recorded instruction day per week. We're allowing at least 1 day a week for our teachers for planning. Our hope was, as the title of this presentation in Charles County, that on November the 9th, we were hoping to go to phase 2. And phase 2 was going to include our special population students, our 504 plan students, students without internet access, our homeless and displaced students, CTE students, as well as children of employees. Would be offered face-to-face instructions for 4 days a week. About a week prior to this goal of bringing our kids back to November 9th, it became abundantly clear that the virus was going in the wrong direction. So we elected to stay in phase 1. We will not make a decision to come out of that phase before mid-January. Our plan is about 101 pages long, and it was developed by school system leaders, teachers, staffs, consisting of 5 internal work groups, researching a number of practices that was known at the time. We included feedback from our parents and community leaders through surveys. We conducted 2 town halls to include parents and guardians. And then we had a town hall for our teachers. We also included in our stakeholders representation from the Charles County Emergency Services, the Charles County Department of Health, our Internal Safety Advisory Committee, the Education Association of Charles County, which is our teachers union, representation from the Charles County branch of the NAACP, as well as other community leaders. So this detailed plan covered everything from giving an example of what a virtual schedule would be for every level. We covered diagnostic assessment plans. We talked about instructions across key content areas. And we also focused in on special needs, compliance, and protocols. So I want to emphasize this plan because if the adults in the room are reassured that there is a plan, then the adults can better support their kids. So now that we have a plan, the next step of the process was to develop a standard operating procedures. And our operating procedures included safeguards and expectation. Devil is into details. We covered everything in detail about arrival and dismissal of schools, health questionnaires and pre-screenings for our parents and guardians so that they know what to look for in terms of the health of their students before sending them off to schools. We went into quite a bit of detail about disinfecting and sanitizing the classrooms, how to set up the classrooms, how to go about going to the restrooms, how to do recess, how to eat, what do we do with backpacks, how do we interact with water fountains. We even covered main office procedures. How would we conduct operations in terms of visitors and volunteers and contractor access? What happens when a student becomes sick at school? And what is the detailed process of handling that? The notification process. And so we left no stone unturned. And I kind of briefly went over some of the topics in the operating procedures, but I wanted just to show that we're looking to the depths of the ocean in terms of there's a lot to think about when you're managing a 27,000 plus school system. We have 33 campuses. There's a lot of detail and a lot of management issues to consider. The other thing that I'd like to share with you guys is that we even created a standard operating procedure for our personal protective gear, PPE. We knew back in February, based on news accounts, that this pandemic was something different. And fortunately, our staff proceeded to accumulate and research what would be the appropriate type gear. We have a warehouse full of various types of PPE equipment, to include not only the N95 mask, K995 mask, surgical mask, clear face shields, washable gowns, safety glasses, gloves, and face masks. But just as importantly, many of you or many of us in the community didn't know how to don on this equipment and how to properly wear that. And this procedure outlines just how to do that. So then the next part of the equation is, since we have a plan, we've outlined standard operating procedures, then the next thing that we started to take a look at is from a health data perspective. And we have an Office of School Safety and Security that provides, as needed and updated as needed all the health data that is necessary to make important decisions. Everything from the positivity rate for our staff as well as our students. If there are trends, where are the trends? We even take a look at our neighboring counties in terms of their trends and their health data, because we do live in the Southern Maryland region. I do have family in the Prince George's area. And so we can learn from each other. We can share experiences, and we can be unified in our effort to get this health crisis under control. All of the information that I'm providing to you is all posted on our webpage, Charles County Public Schools. And in fact, if you go to our webpage, at the very top, it is outlined, the road to recovery. And you can look at our plans, our standard operating procedures, as well as resources that are necessary in this time of a pandemic. I agree wholeheartedly with what Dr. McClure has had to say. And it is very important, especially as we enter into the holiday season, which typically is very challenging with those with mental challenges. And COVID has compounded that exponentially. Just so that you know, this list of mental health resources, again, is posted. I don't know if many of you are aware of the fact that there is a 211 number that you can call, or you can call or text your zip code to 898-211 in the event that you're finding yourself, someone you love, someone you care for that needs assistance. In addition, we also in Charles County have a partnership with the Charles County Youth Service Bureau and the Center for Children. We also have provided a guideline of talking with your children about COVID-19. I wanted to share with you briefly an overview about our plan and about our operating procedures, because if the parent and the guardian is calm and is confident in the plan and the operating procedures, then it only can be beneficial in dealing with our children. I want to emphasize that if you have any questions, if the resources that are listed is not something that you feel comfortable with, you can certainly reach out to me. You can certainly reach out to the superintendent of schools. You can certainly reach out to your principals, your vice principals, and your teachers. And speaking of teachers, we are just as concerned about their well-being and their mental health, because they will be spending an enormous amount of time with our children. And so we our eyes are wide open in terms of making sure that they feel confident that they can reach out and say, hey, I need help because it's overwhelming. The moderator was very gracious enough to indicate that I am a member of the Board of Visitors for the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, which is one of 4 HBCUs in the state of Maryland. I would have to remind everyone that our college students have to enter a classroom as well. And we need to be very cognizant of their needs and making sure that we get them the help because there's a tendency, they are 18 and older, and they tend to be very helpful, very independent, and have a mind of their own. So I would just share with you, don't forget about our collegiate students as well. I leave you with 2 questions that I often think about as a board member is how do we recover from this if and when we get back to normal academically, especially children of color. And that is a challenge that it's going to take all of us to really sit down and come up with a plan and think through that. I'm going to innocently advocate that we hold conversations and we encourage as much reading as possible. The other thing I would also say is we have to continue to think about ways that we can heal from COVID. And I think Dr. McClure covered quite a bit of information, and that's something particularly in the African-American community that we have to really get our arms around. The social emotional learning under virtual environment is something else that we have to be cognizant of, because now we're forcing our children to learn behind a screen. And when the time comes, we have to think about that social interaction and those skill sets, those executive functioning skill sets that are very important as we grow to become adults. So I very carefully and cautiously covered an overview about the plan and about the operating procedures, because I want to reassure the public that there are professionals behind the scenes that are working very hard and very diligently to think through all of the details. So that the parents and the guardians that are out there wondering what is going on. And again, a lot of detail is posted on our website. I invite you to go there and to look at it for more information. So with that said, I thank you so much for your attention, and I'll turn it back over to the moderator.
Thank you, Ms. Tina Wilson, for that excellent presentation. Now we will hear from our next panelist, Dr. Frederick J. Corder. He is a pediatrician, and Dr. Corder has over 43 years of experience in the medical field. He specializes in adolescent medicine, internal medicine, and pediatrics. He is a graduate from Howard University College of Medicine, and he graduated in 1977. He also did his residency at Howard University Hospital. So without further ado, I give you Dr. Corder.
I'm not sure Dr. Corder has joined us yet.
Okay.
Dr. Corder, are you on the call? If not, we can go on. I see Ms. Williams has joined us.
Okay, great.
Great.
So Ms. Sonia Williams will be our next speaker. She's a District 9 board member with Prince George's County Board of Education. Ms. Williams was first appointed by County Executive Rashern Baker III in January of 2014. In December 2018, she was sworn in for her second elected term to represent the Board of Education in District 9. Ms. Williams is a civil engineer with over 25 years of project management experience on local and national construction projects. She's completed her secondary education at Crossland High School in 1985, after which she attended the University of Maryland to study civil engineering. Her career in civil engineering began with the Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission, working on the headquarters building in Laurel, Maryland. Other notable projects, including the expansion of BWI Airport and most recently, the Tanger Outlet Mall. She received her master's degree in international organizational leadership from Georgetown University. During her first elected term, she has held over 50 Coffee with Your School board member events. She's worked closely with PGCPS Capital Programs Office on improvements and renovations. She has been an active member of several board committees, holding key committee leadership positions. Ms. Williams continues to develop real estate across the nation through her full-time position as the development manager on multi-million-dollar real estate development projects. She has served as PTSA president at Gwynn Park High School and in various organizations as community organizer, parent association treasurer, school fundraising co-chair, and community developer. She is an active member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated and the Lions Club. She resides in Clinton, Maryland with her husband and her 2 sons, and they worship at Mount Enon Baptist Church. I give you Miss Sonia Williams.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I need to show bio. I actually finished hosting coffee with the school board member this morning, so that is my reason for being late, and I apologize for that. But I definitely wanted to participate in this meeting. We have so much going on in PGCPS, Prince George's County Public Schools, and with COVID, it just magnifies, what we have to do when we try to educate students. So there were a number of things that I wanted to cover today, and I appreciate Ms. Tina Wilson for covering the information in Charles County, because ours basically, mirrors that. And so I will actually jump to that information first, so that everyone who is interested in Prince George's County Public Schools in the reopening plan can know where they can find information. And again, I echo everything that Ms. Tina Wilson discussed. We have all of the information that parents or constituents may want to know about how we're reopening Prince George's County Public Schools in COVID on our website. And here is the link up here is pgcps.org/reopen-pgcps. And you will find the information here. We're currently working in a virtual phase where all of our students are learning virtually, doing distance learning. And similarly to Charles County, we have 4 days of academics and 1 day of self-learning, where they have the opportunity to either ask questions on us and interact with the teachers in smaller sessions, or decide to just do homework and catch up on practicing some of what they learned. That day is Wednesday. So Monday and Tuesday, we have full days of classes. Thursday and Friday, we have full day of classes. And Wednesday is sort of the self-paced, self-learning opportunity for students. We also feed our students meals every day. Students are allowed to pick up meals on Monday, and they pick up Monday and Monday and Tuesday's meals. On Wednesday, they pick up Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday's meal. And they can go to any school that is close by their home. So if your student is a high school student and they're in a specialty program, but their school is miles away. Let's say they live in Clinton, but their school is in Oxon Hill. They can go to the neighborhood elementary and pick up a lunch for themselves, or the parents can do that for them. Although we are not currently in school, it is important that parents still adhere to the immunization requirements, because at some point we will be back in school, in the school building. So the parents should just communicate with their school to ensure that they have all the immunizations that they are required to have. And I believe we currently have clinics at some of our schools, and that information can be found on our website. This section talks about the reopening plan and sort of goes through the process of making decisions and the information that we use to make those decisions. Similarly to Charles County, we did surveys and town halls to be able to interact with the community to determine what their thoughts are on re-entering school. And so we did that earlier in the year. Our plan was to return to school after second quarter, which puts us in February and beyond the sort of going out of flu season. With the numbers that we're seeing currently, there may be an impact to that, that date. So we will be meeting and making a decision early in December as to what that may look like and when that may happen for us to re-enter the schools. And our plan is to do a phase-in plan where we'd have certain students, depending on their last name, enter school 2 days a week, let's say Monday, Tuesday, and then the other group would go to school Thursday, Friday, based on their last name. And it will be an opt-in or opt-out for the parents to opt in to whether or not they want their students to go into the schools. It will not be a requirement for next semester. I'm sorry, for the third quarter when we decide to go back into the school building. So we have set up technology centers for parents to take devices, because this year is the first year that every student has a device to communicate with the school. We handed out devices throughout the summer and at the end of last school year. We're a one-to-one school district now. And so with having a device, parents may have challenges. So we have set up technology centers for parents to take devices to get some tech support, or they could actually call in and get some tech support as well. So that's basically all the information about our reopening plan for this year and how we plan to operate for the rest of the year. So if you could hold questions till after the rest of the presentation, I definitely will be open to answering questions. The one thing that we are doing right now is we're developing our 2022 budget. And as an economic development association, this I think is a great opportunity for businesses to know where we're putting money. So if they would like to interact with PGCPS, this is an opportunity to do so. You'll see where our money is being placed when we're talking about school development, services, equipment and material, all of that is in our budget. So Dr. Golson will be our superintendent and CEO, will be doing her presentation on December 10th. And we will have 2 opportunities for community input on January 19th and February 2nd. We anticipate a shortfall due to COVID of $170 million for a school system that serves 136,000 students, and we have 207 schools and around another 100 buildings like bus lots and things like that. and we employ 20,000 employees, 170 million is a big number to overcome. We're already working in a deficit for what we believe we need to efficiently and effectively educate students with our $2.3 billion to anticipate $170 million shortfall is a large number to overcome. So I encourage everyone to participate in the process of developing our budget, because we're going to have to make cuts somewhere. And we'd love to hear from everyone, parents, teachers, and community members, what their thoughts are around the budget and our priorities. On our website, you'll see the calendar for activities in developing our budget for this year. And you can join our meetings via Zoom on the 19th and the 22nd if you'd like to have some input. That will be at 7 p.m. on January 19th and February 2nd at 7 p.m. And so you will be able to join us in a town hall setting for that, to participate in those meetings. This is an example of what our budget looks like and where our funding sources come from. You'll see here the $2.3 billion is what we actually got approved this year, with the majority of our money coming from the state. So similarly to Charles County, the state funds a large part of our budget, and we know that the state was shut down, and we have not been able to, purchase and entertain and all that stuff. So taxes will be less. So we anticipate, that's how we anticipate there will be $170 million shortfall. And all of this, again, is on our website for anyone to peruse. What I would suggest is that when you visit pgcps.org, just do a search on budget, and this information can be located. And here is an example of how our money is spent. The $2.3 billion, 34% of it goes to instructional salaries. So we're talking teachers and other people that work in the school building. Highest funding expenditure is for fixed charges, and then followed by special education. So when we're looking at the budget, and we're trying to figure out where we can sort of shorten the cash flow for this, it'll come out of this pot. And we already know what happens when we make decisions that impact people, especially our instructional salaries. As if of you have been following our school system for a few years, you know that we finally were able to recover from the 2008 shortfall, where teachers are able to be where they should have been before the 2008 economic debacle. So we're hoping that we will not have to make those kinds of decisions again during this. So we're talking regularly and trying to figure out ways where we can find to make cuts. And so that's all I really have on the budget. If there are any parents that are on this call, they may be interested in our specialty programs and lottery programs. Our programs are open for application right now. The close dates are different for our specialty programs, our creative and performing arts, our CTE, which is our career technology education, and our K-8 programs. Tell parents all the time that we have made many, many improvements in our neighborhood schools. Our neighborhood schools have some amazing programs within those schools. But if you have a child that's like my son, who I say he was born with motor oil in his veins, cars. Our neighborhood high school was Surrattsville. And because my son was so much into automotive, we were able to get him into a CTE program for automotive. And he graduated with 3 certifications in automotives. And he's currently in college studying mechanical engineering, but he's home right now. We kept him home this semester for COVID. He's doing everything online. And while he's home, he's able to work at a car dealership, actually in Waldorf, repairing cars. And so, I mean, we have done a lot to improve the options and availabilities for students who really, are interested in something. So I will always send parents, say your first choice should be your neighborhood school. But if your child is really into something, if they're really into dance, really into working with their hands, or really into language, specialty programs, there is a process to get in. Here are the dates, and also is available on our website. These dates are available on our website. And so here is a list of all of our programs. If you go to pgcps.org/academics, you will get a listing of all of our programs that parents may be interested in, investigating for their student. And then if you look at pgcps.org/applications, the process for entering and applying for those programs are here. So again, all of this information is here on our website. I would suggest that you use the search bar and just keyword in and have it search for you, because that's the way I navigate it, because it's just much information that's there for you. And it is, you will find something to match your students' needs, from students that are talented and gifted to students that are wanting to use their hands, students that may have special needs, or students that just want to be with other kids. There's something for every child in PGCPS. The last thing that I want to cover is one of the most amazing opportunities that I think had in Prince George's County. And I don't say that because I was really involved in this, but one of the things that we deal with, having 207 schools, most of our schools are over 50 years. The traditional process takes 10 years from concept to opening doors for a school to be built. And being someone that's in construction, I thought 10 years was just too long of a time to build a building. We build buildings in no time. After the design process and the approval process, it typically should not take you that long to build the building. But there's a lot of review, a lot of involvement, from funding to design approvals and things like that. The ability to build new schools in less than 3 years is amazing. We will be building 6 new schools, opening the doors by 2024. 5 middle schools and 1 K-8 school. That is because we have been given the authority to use a different method to bring new schools online, and we call it the Alternative School Construction Funding. And it's really just the P3 process, a public-private process, public-private partnership process that allows us to bring a partner on board to help us move this process forward. The traditional process is that we have a concept or a need for a new building. We get that concept approved by the state. We design it. We get that approved by the state. We get the design approved by the county, and then we start construction. If we were to miss deadlines at a certain time, we would have to wait a year to go back through that process. And so that is one of in simple terms, why it would take 10 years. The ACF allows us to bring on funding from a partner, have the design reviewed and approved as if it is a building that built everywhere else, meaning since our funding is coming from a partner, we do not have to go through the state and go through that budget process to get funding and approval. And then we're able to move much more quickly. The difference between the traditional method that we're still going to continue to use and the ACF is that when we open the doors traditionally in the traditional 10-year process, we completely own the building. It is 100% paid for. All the bills have been paid. What this allows us to do is to open the building, and now we have a mortgage on the building. But how we're able to pay for this with school system money and county money is because by taking those old buildings offline, we were able to find operating dollars that we can put into what we call an affordability payment, pay that mortgage. But also in this ACF process, we will have the buildings maintained by the partner. Traditionally, our staff maintain the buildings. And as you know, having 207 buildings, we would have to have a massive maintenance department. We don't have a massive maintenance department because we are in the business of education, not construction and building maintenance. And so we put the majority of our money, as you saw, in instructional education. And so there are some advantages to having this ACF opportunity to include in our toolbox. The relationship with the partner will be a 30-year period. And for the 6 schools, some amount of money that we will be spending annually is $300 million. 1/3 will come from the school system and 2/3 will come from the county. And so we will be paying basically a mortgage and a maintenance fee on those buildings. Should the partner not meet our requirements in the maintenance portion, we will be able to reduce their maintenance payment. This is absolutely an incredible opportunity for our local and minority businesses to participate, not only today during the construction and the design and construction phase, but also in the maintenance phase and also in the financing phase. So there are local and minority businesses that are in finance, in design, in construction, in maintenance, in supply of those maintenance items. You have the opportunity to participate today. The partner who we have selected, and for some reason the name escapes me, but again, they're on the website. The partner that we have selected is currently looking for subcontractors to work with them. So I believe there is something that's on the street now requesting subcontractors to participate. You can find all of this information on our website under pdcps.org/blueprint. All of this information is here for you to get more information. And you will also see who our partner is and the contracting mechanism that we use. So the partner is required to meet a dollar value annually in spending with local and minority businesses. So it's not a percentage. They cannot finagle their way out of it. You know how sometimes contractors will say, oh, we really tried, but we really couldn't find. They have to do everything possible to make sure that they spend with a local and minority business.
Yeah, but see, let me say something real quick. I want to jump in before I get it out. See, this is the same. I don't want to go down the same route we went down with National Harbor and MGM.
Mm-hmm.
What restrictions if they don't participate? And I'm not worried about that minority. I'm talking about Black folks for 2 times. Black businesses didn't get a piece of this action. What constraints or restrictions and that you all have put in place for Black businesses? Because we done lost out on this, and this is supposed to be this great plan. Has you been and it's not a best effort thing, because last time when MGM was best effort, and
this is not a best effort. This is
what I'm
not
saying
a
is
best effort.
what I'm saying is what for Black businesses, you know what I mean? Because we get caught up with that minority. We got that with MGM and all that, and then the county lacks their rules for getting these built. I mean, MGM built, and people got messed up. So what have y'all looked at in the past to make sure that, I think it's Gilbrave, is that the name of the group?
Yeah, it is Gilbane. It is Gilbane.
Gilbane's, to make sure that they find Black. I don't want to go that minority, because we went through this 2 times with National Harbor and MGM, and that we do this. You know, everybody get all happy because we building new schools, but if us help Black folks building in a county where we're minority Black, get the actions. You know.
So what I would recommend is that you can send me an email directly, and I will put my email in the chat. Send me an email directly, and I will forward your information to our Capital Programs Department so that they can forward your information to the partner.
No. I'm not talking about a partner. I'm talking about you all as a school board. What safeguard or benchmarks have you all put in place to make sure that African Americans get a piece of this action?
What I can tell you is the opportunity is there. Opportunity is there. There is a requirement that they meet a $1 threshold, again, for local and minority businesses. And so the opportunity is there. We did not put a requirement on Black businesses because of what requirements or what our limitations are in a legal sense. And so that's why I am giving you this opportunity as what I believe is a Black business owner to make sure you are put in front of that organization. If they do not meet this $1 value, not percent, not best effort. If they don't meet this $1 value, they are financially impacted, strongly impacted. And what I can do when you send me your email, I can have our capital programs person send you that impact. It is the most strict that I've ever seen, that I'm in this business, and I did not participate in the MGM building, but I did participate in National Harbor and Tanger. And so I know for a fact how some of the contractors try to get around that. And because we have such a strict requirement, they will be financially impacted where they cannot get around that. Now, specifically for Black businesses, that is, you're getting into sort of the legal terms that we can't get around. And so, but I can definitely get the information to you from our capital programs office so that you will be able to know specifically what that penalty is.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. We're going to hold the rest of the questions for you until the Q&A session.
Okay.
We do have one more speaker on that we'd like to, as soon as you're done, we'd like to introduce them.
And so that, I believe, is the last topic that I wanted to share with you. And then I just wanted to show you our organization chart so that if you need to maneuver through the system, through PGCPS, you know which office handles what item so that you can get to the correct department. So that is all that I had to share. I know it was a whole lot of information. And again, I do coffee every third Saturday. It's virtual now. So I encourage everyone to attend. It's from 9 to 10:30 every third Saturday. So thank you so much for the opportunity to present, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Sonia Williams, for that excellent presentation. Now we will hear from Dr. Frederick Corder.
Hello, how are you all?
Fine, and you?
Good. I don't have any slides, I'm just sort of talk. We're talking about the COVID and how the impact that's having on our educational system, our schools, and as we talk about sending kids back to school. I am an active pediatrician in Bowie area. I've been in practice for the last 30, 40 years there. And this whole COVID issue has created a lot of problems for our children and families in general. As we do know, we are writing the book as we walk. And when I say that, oftentimes the information that you get, whether it's from your local health department, your doctor's office, or even the federal government, it changes. And one of the big reasons it's changing is because we really don't know. We are really just beginning to understand this virus, we understand the effects that it's having on people. And that's why you're getting this change of information. Fortunately, we did close schools down back in March or so. And then coming into this year, we're doing different variations of it. I would say there's a few big problems. One is that even though with the best effort of the educational system to sort of work with a virtual school, it is problematic for many children and families. First, there's the equipment problems, which I won't even get into, but just in terms of the adaptation to learning. Sometimes we have children online from 9:30 till 3 o'clock. Some of our children don't have attention spans to last that long. Sometimes the families don't have people to be able to observe the children at home. And so this is a problem, just making certain that we get adequate attention and application. And then we have children who have special needs, who may need more than just a regular classroom, whether it's an IEP or what we call a 503 plan. Those aren't being implemented very well. So that's a problem. But in spite of all these problems of application, we do have the concern for the infection. Fortunately, our children have been infected somewhere between a 1% to 5% get ill of those who actually get infected. So it's a very low illness level for children. And we are seeing some new illnesses, our multi-system illness that we get with COVID. But the biggest problem is that the children are bringing the infections to other susceptible people. And so we're getting family members, we're getting other grandparents ill with this who may be compromised and are then having a problem. I've had several cases of families where either the parents or the grandparents end up hospitalized or with severe infections. Now, sometimes you may only get a mild infection like a cold or something, but those who get severe infection, it can be fatal at times. And so as we talk about this going back to school, particularly in a time where we're now seeing an increase, that can be a problem for us. Although, yes, I do want our children back in school. It does help the families both socially, economically, and even on a learning curve. But increasing the risk to the families is something I think we really do have to consider. And so as we're looking at this going forward, we have to be very vigilant in making certain the decisions that we make are not just a matter of we're tired of having them at home or we're concerned about them not learning this year, but we also have to worry about the health of the family and of the community. And so from a physician perspective, I have great hesitation and concern. I'll just hit lightly on the vaccine because again, I say that we're learning as we walk along. This vaccine is just as new as the infection. You know, our vaccines that we use usually have been tested 5, 10, 15, 20, some even 30 years. So to come out with a vaccine that in the same year that we come up with it, that we now make it general public, is a questionable issue for many people. And so as we get this vaccine out, and although the news reports say that this is going to be our saving grace, we have to be concerned about that. Because sometimes we do have problems with our vaccines. Sometimes there can be reactions. Sometimes there can be ineffectiveness with them. And so right now, our best thing is the social distancing, wearing the mask. And we've actually seen decreases in just general emergency room visits. We've seen decreases in hospitalizations, illnesses, asthmatic reactions. And so it is having effect, not just on COVID, but just on health of the community in general. And so this is a good thing for us. And so right now, I think that's our best position to be in. And so I will entertain questions at a time that's appropriate, but that's my biggest concern as we look at our children, our schools, and our plans to sort of reintroduce the children back into school. Do you want me to take questions now or later?
During the Q&A session. So
okay, no problem.
Shortly, yes. Well, Amina, you're muted.
I'm
okay,
sorry. Thanks.
I can take them in the Q&A. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Corder, for that excellent presentation. Now we will open the floor for questions from our CEDAR board member, Ms. Esther Williams.
Good morning, everyone. Our first question comes from Wenda Tucker. Question for, will the PPE be provided to all students regularly, or will they be requested to have their own? Also, will there be individual or group therapy sessions in the school for students as they return to school to help identify issues from the pandemic?
So I believe that question was directed towards me, and the answer is, if the student in Charles County Public Schools shows up with PPE, we're certainly not going to take that away from them. And that's the reason why I emphasize the PPE operating manual, so that the parents can see the types of equipment that is available and say, shall acceptable. And so it is a parent's choice. We just ask that as much as possible, use the approved equipment. And yes, if a student gets on the bus, gets off the bus, walks into the building, kids are kids, they're going to lose it. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't know if you've ever put on a mask and it's broken. And so, yes, there will be supplies made available. It's in our best interest to do so. We're going to issue on an acceptable amount in terms of the teachers to make sure that they are protected as well. Now, in terms of the counseling session, I'm not aware of anything scheduled in advance, but certainly if those services are requested, we will do our very best to accommodate. And of course, our therapists, our counselors, our psychologists will be engaged in such that, if so determined, I'm sure these services will be made available. But that's a great question, because sometimes a student won't ask or a parent won't ask, but we certainly will be in an observation mode to see if there is some behavior that warrants intervention. And so that's a good question. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next question is from Wenda Tucker for Dr. McCleary. I believe he's still on, and I know he has to leave. And it says, there are so many parents and caregivers working to assist children with distant learning now. Many of them are overwhelmed with the process. What is your advice to help ease their stress right now?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question. And I wrote in the chat room, there are so many parents and caregivers, like you said, that are working, trying to adjust to an arena that honestly the parents and the caregivers have never had to do before. So my suggestion is that we might be able to formulate a network of individuals who have specific expertise in an area of study, almost a co-op. For instance, teachers could have a guest presenter for a few days to help them teach. You know, that helps the teacher continue to learn, but also it gives the teacher a breather to have a guest presenter with them. On the other hand, parents might know someone who works, let's say, in biology, because it's the hard classes, biology and math, that many of the parents that I talk to struggle the most with. So maybe the parents might know someone who works for HHS or EPA, or maybe, you know, at one of the hospitals or whatever, and they could get them to join them in talking to their student about a certain topic. And that way, it takes that burden off the parent to have a liberal arts education and become a specialist in every area. I'm almost certain every parent will know a group of people that specializes in certain areas. And I don't know if there are any restrictions from the school districts for the parents allowing someone else to basically become the tutor or the mentor for that student. It gives the parent a break. It takes the stress, the anxiety off of the parent. And honestly, I think when we can alleviate some of the stress and the anxiety, not only from the parent, but if the students today are like the students when my children were in school and asking me questions, they kind of knew when I didn't know what I was talking about. I was just winging it. And I only had to do that every now and then. Can you imagine what the parents are having to endure day by day by day doing this? But that would be my recommendation.
Thank you. We have two questions from Tanya Sweat, and I do believe it's for Ms. Williams, and she responded back. So the question was, so is the ACF a fixed price contract? The other question, have environmental impact studies been done for the locations where the schools will be built or renovated? The first answer, yes. It is my understanding that there is an environmental study has been done, completed, and was part of that. The second response to that second question was yes, the contract is a fixed price contract. The partner is responsible for the design, permit, and construction. Typically, changes to the contract comes in two areas: design issues and scope changes. Since the partner is responsible for the design, and changes will be their responsibility. If we decide to change the scope, then we will be responsible for the changes. Tanya Sweat's other question was for Dr. Kaur. Please keep saying people keep saying schools are not super spreaders. What is required to ensure schools do not become places where the virus is easily spread? That was for
Yes,
Dr.
I'm here. Okay. That's going to be a difficult question to sort of answer, because as we talk about super spreaders, we're looking at identifying who may be ill, and that's a problem with our children. Oftentimes, children may be asymptomatic. And if they're asymptomatic and they're in contact with other children, yes, that can be a setup for that kind of a scenario. And that is why, even though we're going to be doing temperatures, hopefully on kids as they come in, trying to pick up those that may be ill earlier. And so anything we do to try to pick them up early may help. But this is one of the crises issues that we do face, or we will face.
Thank you, Doctor. Yvette says PGCPS is offering parent support groups monthly. Check the special ed link on PGCPS to register. I can speak for Charles County. My son, who is 12 in middle school, he's actually in a support group in his middle school, and they meet twice a month. And she meets also with the kids every other week on one-on-one, and they do a group session. They also have a parent session in the afternoon once a month. And it's been very good for my middle school in Charles County. We have another question by Wenda Tucker. Dr. Kaur, so many people are apprehensive about vaccines in general. What advice can you offer to help ease fears, especially regarding the COVID vaccine? Also, do you recommend the flu or pneumonia shot for children in this season?
Okay, you go in front of me. You go. Okay. Well, first, let me take the easy part. Yes, the flu shot is recommended in this season because everyone can be exposed to it. So, particularly if you're high risk, that is those with diabetes, kidney problems, or around people with those things, those kind of illnesses are definitely recommended to get the flu shot. The COVID vaccine, on the other hand, is going to be like many of our other issues regarding this. We're writing this book as we go along. And so I do recommend that everyone do due diligence as we do get the vaccine out, and they're going to give some information about it. Right now, I have not heard that it's going to be a definite mandate for everyone to take it. First responders may be at a higher chance of being mandated. But I think the due diligence is going to be important, because as we come out with these vaccines, and there are different types of vaccines. Right now, we're talking about the messenger RNA is our main one that we're working on, but there are different ones that haven't been cleared by FDA, but have different technology. So looking at the technology, kind of getting information about the technology, and hopefully being able to make some decision would be our best chance. But as I said, we're writing this as we go along. So information is important. And then as we try to hopefully give you the availability to make decisions. Okay.
If I might inject this, just so the audience will know, with the trials, we actually have a member at the congregation where I preach, and he's made it public that he was actually in one of the clinical trials. It required 2 shots, and there has been 0 side effects. African-American male, Gen Xer, married, has a child, live in PG County. But I share that with the audience so that at least you will know that we know someone within the county who has actually participated in the trials. And he has kept me abreast of this throughout the whole process. And he has the antibodies. He did his own independent, got tested, but he does have the antibodies. But as far as any negative impact, he's reported none. And I just thought maybe that would be helpful. And when the drug becomes available, at least you can say, well, at least I know of at least one African American who was in the trials, and no side impacts reported at all.
Okay, this is Dr. Corder. One point, and I think it's very good that we can do that. But in the world of vaccines, we look at tens of thousands of doses before we talk about safety, because it's not just the one that may happen. Oftentimes we don't know until we've done tens of thousands. And that's why I think there's apprehension, both in the medical community and in the general public, in that even though we're doing clinical trials, and the last two that I've seen have been somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 40,000 people involved in the trials, with maybe 50 to 90 people with some kind of a reaction. That's a small number. And so we are in a crisis situation where we're trying to control something that's new. And we are in a double crisis that we're dealing with a vaccine that is not tested like we usually test vaccines. When I give someone a measles vaccine or tetanus vaccine or diphtheria, these are vaccines that we have literally hundreds of thousands of doses out there. And then we look at the kind of reactions. So this trial is good. It does kind of give us some consolation, but we have to admit that this is really a small scale when we talk about efficacy and safety of vaccines.
Thank you so much for that. Just to let everyone know, Sonia Williams has placed her email address in the chat, as well as Tina Wilson has also placed her email address in the chat. Are there any other questions at this time? Wanda, do you want me to unmute?
Ms. Wilson, you have a question?
I don't have a question, but I'm hoping that my colleague Sonia Williams will chime in with me. We're about to enter into the legislative period, and I could stay on this conference call all day long and have a discussion in terms of education, and I can make the argument all day long how important education is in terms of economic development. And given the COVID conditions, we definitely need to engage our legislators. The combination of Charles County and Prince George's County, we have some influential legislators in the Maryland Assembly. We need to make sure that they understand the nuances that our districts are facing. For example, attendance or enrollment is important because our dollars assignments are dependent upon how many folks are registered for schools. The second thing is in terms of the resources, not only to keep up what we have, but to recover from COVID. And in particular, I'm talking about mental health. And so we or you as an organization can have a huge influence about having those discussions in those terms, because there is so much behind the scenes that happened that needs to be supported, that goes unnoticed. And then when you throw COVID on top of it, sometimes our legislators are not attuned to those details. And so we have to be conscious of those I feel very fortunate what little shortfall we have in Charles County in terms of Prince George's County. That's a lot of money. And that is a conversation that needs to have, because we're talking about the impact on our children. And so please, as we talk about economics and business, We need to throw in the impact on education and its impact on the economic development aspect. So if we can join in unison and echoing, the implications of COVID, I think we can recover faster when things get back to normal. Thank you.
I completely agree. Thank you for saying that, Ms. Wilson.
Esther, is the floor open for questions for people on the phone? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, okay. My name is Caroline Wills. I'm also a member of the CETA board. I had a question for the Reverend or the doctor that's the pediatrician, but I wanted to, I was referring back to the conversation about how stressful it is for students and parents with the cadre of information being poured at us from the news media on this COVID. And I wanted to ask either or both of you to comment on what are some of the things that you would suggest we do as citizens in terms of listening to the media daily. Should we turn the TV off? Should we try to stay attuned to key points? Or is there some strategy that parents may want to consider so that they protect, to whatever extent we can, themselves as well as their children? The second question is a follow-up to the last one that just, I think it was Ms. Wilson. I just wanted all the panelists to be aware of, again, that CETA is one of its primary functions and missions, and I've been with the organization for over 20 years, is to provide as a 501c6. What we're there to do is that very thing, to be a support arm in the community for issues like this that we can bring to the General Assembly or to whatever political bodies impact this community. And of course, those people that we represent are the general community in general, both all of Prince George's County now and Charles County, or any other county in the state of Maryland where its impact is throughout the whole state. So I think it would be very appropriate for CETA to buttress this conversation on budget in order for us to help you in any way. So Linda is our legislative person. Jane Thomas, again, is the president. We can, by all means, come back to us as a board of directors to help us, to help you to be able to do that. That is why we were established. That was the purpose of it. And we can certainly interface with you in that regard. So I'll leave it open now, at least to either question if any of the panelists want to comment.
Okay. All right. This is Dr. Corder. Thank you. You talk about information. I think it is important that the parents do stay abreast of as much information as they can, and that's important. But information overflow can be a problem because, again, as I said, things are changing because as our knowledge change, what we say changes. So you do have to kind of stay upfront of what's going on, how the data changes, how the information changes, so you can know that. Now, our children sometimes also get overwhelmed, not just with the video games, but with the background information that we're flooding into their lives. And so we have to be careful with how much information they're listening to, but also that we keep an open conversation with them, that we talk to them, that we give them hope, that we let them know that we're working on things, that we're taking the adult responsibility of making things as safe as we can for them. But that open conversation is important to decrease stress and crises in children's lives. Because when we try to protect them or shield them totally and say, no, don't talk about it, that sometimes creates more anxiety. So 1, staying abreast, 2, appropriate conversation, and 3, as somebody mentioned earlier, if crises come, make certain you seek crisis and help for both the parents and the students early. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any additional questions? If you would like to ask a question, please unmute yourself and proceed with your question. If not, I would like to thank our panelists for an awesome presentation. I want to thank you all for your service and your commitment to our children, our patients, our communities, our friends, and our families. Thank you once again, Dr. Bruce McClure, Ms. Latina Wilson, Dr. Frederick Corder, and Ms. Sonia Williams. And now I would like to introduce Ms. Linda Thomas, who is our CEDA Legislative Affairs Committee Chairperson, to give announcements. Is Ms. Linda Thomas on?
Linda is not on, but I believe Jim is going to share for her.
Thank you.
Do you have any information to share on legislation, Jim?
I believe he's having audio problems.
Yes, he's having audio problems. We can move on to Tanya since Jim is having audio problems. It's 11:52 and we want to stay on track and make sure that we don't interfere with people's schedules today. Can't hear you either, Tanya. Little audio glitch this morning.
Okay, can you hear me now? Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Had to shift things on the computer. But I want to say first, thank you, Wenda. But I gotta say, as always, Dr. Taylor, you did it again. The Health Action and the Program Committee has done an awesome job and provided us with another phenomenal general meeting with a lot of wonderful, healthful, and healthy information. And on behalf of our president, who had to step away to prepare for another meeting after this one, I cannot thank you both ladies enough for what you have done today. I also want to thank our panelists, Dr. Corder, I think I lost the doctor, but the good doctor, say his last name for me, Wenda, I'll mess it up. Dr. McClure.
McClure, yes.
Dr. McClure, Dr. Corder, Ms. Wilson, and Ms. Williams. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for participating today. It is so important that our community understand what this pandemic means, the precautions we need to take, and how it might impact our children as they return to school in some instances, and as we prepare them for the possibility of returning to school after the Christmas holidays. It is critical, especially now with the numbers going up and we're getting reports about more people being hospitalized. We all need to know what we need to do to keep our families safe, to keep our children safe, to keep our community safe. And so we really, really appreciate you all taking the time out of your busy schedule today just to share some knowledge with CEDA and with our community who's joined us on YouTube. I cannot thank enough our board members at CEDA who support our operations and ensure that we work hard to get the word out in the community. And I also want to thank our audience who've joined us today on YouTube. I hope that the presentation has been impactful and insightful. And you can always reach out to us here at CEDA and let us know if you have any other ideas or topics you want to know about. Send us an email. You can email us individually, or you can email us through the CEDA Inc. website, it's cedainc.org. send us an email through our website and let us know if there's a topic you want to hear about on economic development, community relations. Dr. Williams will probably, Dr. Williams, I'm giving you a promotion, Ms. Williams. We're going to probably invite you back and PGCPS to talk a little bit more about the P3 contract and the alternative funding for school construction. That's a big topic in the community now. So we'll talk to you about maybe discussing that some more early next year. But again, we just thank everybody for being here. And this is the season to be grateful, despite the fact that 2020 has been a tough year for many of us, a hurtful year for a lot of us. And it has been hard in some instances being cooped up. I tell people I get COVID rage or Zoom rage sometimes because we've been meeting so much online. And I know there is a COVID weariness roaming about the nation and about our community. But I want to remind everybody that in this season, we're here. We're still surviving. We're thriving. So we still have a lot to be grateful for. And I, for one, am extremely grateful. It could be a lot worse. And so I want to just say, whether you're traveling, and if you are traveling, please be careful. Whether you're not, whether you're cooped up at home with your family, eating your turkey and ham and macaroni and cheese and your stuffing or your dressing and your sweet potatoes, I want to wish you all, on behalf of the South County Economic Development Association Incorporated and our foundation, the South County Institute for Economic Development, a wonderful, joyous, healthy, and pleasant Thanksgiving holiday season. We will not have a general meeting in December because we usually take the month off for Christmas. So I'm also going to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and the best of New Year's in 2021. I think we all have a lot to look forward to. I'm excited, for one, about a new year coming, and we look forward to coming back in mid-January to talk about another topic and to share more information with you all about what's happening in Prince George's and Charles counties. And maybe in 2021, we can drag Calvert County on this ride as well and expand what we do in our organization. Again, thank you. I wish you all a great day, and we look forward to seeing you back next year.
Thank you so much, Tanya. And that concludes our meeting. I just want to give another special thanks to our speakers for coming together. Some of you at the last minute. Tina was just confirmed yesterday, I believe. And Dr. Corder was at the hospital this morning, but was able to jump on the call anyway. And thank you so much. Thank you all for your presentations. Yes. Ken, do you have a question? I see a hand is waved, or is that a clapping hand? I need to learn. But thank you all so much, and we look forward to your participation in any of our upcoming meetings. Have a wonderful weekend and a wonderful holiday.
Thanks, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye.